Almost a year ago, I made a video called My First Real Buyer's Remorse, the Switch 2. Because I thought I had wasted my money. I originally bought the console in preparation for one specific game, and that game ended up being a massive disappointment for me. But my goal was always to play more games on it, at least eventually, because, well, it is a Nintendo console after all. There will always be exclusives I'm interested in, whether that might be the Duskbloods or Ocarina of Time remake, or, I hope, Metroid 6 eventually. Fast forward to today, and the Switch 2 has actually become a highly valued piece of tech in my house. For better or worse. Let's talk about how that happened. The main game I was preparing for was Metroid Prime 4. As it turns out, that game was just not for me. The start of the game features a guy who simply will not stop talking, which got on my nerves incredibly fast. Getting the bike in the first place felt like walking down an endless repeating hallway, basically like playing Exit 8 almost. At least that's the feeling I got from it. Once you finally get the bike and start using it, you realize the world is huge, but also completely empty. To make things worse, if you want the music to play in the overworld, which sounds ridiculous, you actually have to buy a physical amiibo to unlock it. Yeah. I loved the older Prime and Echoes, and even have a few fond memories of the original release of Corruption on Wii. But this one completely missed the mark for me. Now I am just looking forward to Metroid 6 instead. I am a massive fanatic when it comes to the Metroidvania genre. I love all the 2D Metroid games, Hollow Knight, Silksong, Blasphemous 1 and 2, and the Lily's Lost Ruins, and so many others. I'm not the biggest fan of the ones that have leveling systems, admittedly, but a pure 2D exploration game is exactly what I want. Knowing that if Metroid 6 is going to be a thing, it is going to be on Switch 2. I feel a little bit at peace at least. So if my most anticipated game was a letdown, what made the purchase worth it? Originally, the main reason was Street Fighter 6, but I've also picked up Rhythm Paradise on release. This changed things a lot, because that is a game I get to play with my partner. While I still play mostly on PC because I'm already sitting at my desk anyway, I now use the Switch 2 for very specific things at home. If I'm sitting at the dinner table and do not want to be at my PC, I can easily grab the console, boot up Street Fighter 6, and practice character matchups, test my responses to randomized recordings, or, even though it's kind of pointless but gives you a Zen type of vibe, work on combos because that's always fun. I also play Silksong in handheld mode and Rhythm Paradise together on the TV. What really makes the console make so much sense right now is the massive library of ported games. We're seeing incredible current generation games running on it. You have Resident Evil 7, Village, and on the subject of current generation games, even Requiem. Then there is Street Fighter 6 and the upcoming Monster Hunter Wilds port. And yes, all of these do run on the exact same graphics engine, I do realize that. But there's also 5-7 Remake, Rebirth, and the upcoming Revelations game, just to name a few examples. Add in the entire library of older Switch games that received visual and performance upgrades for the new console, and the reasoning starts to feel somewhat solid. The sheer amount of massive games you can play on this thing makes it a great investment going forward. Unless the prices continue to keep increasing here as well, of course. There are also a bunch of upcoming games I'm really looking forward to, like Elden Ring, Lies of P, Metaphor, and of course Ocarina of Time remake. You might be thinking, wait, you have a needlessly spec'd out gaming PC and a PS5. Why not just play them there? Well, Ocarina of Time obviously is exempt here since that is going to be a Switch 2 exclusive, but you are right, and I did play them there. However, I love games that you can play forever. Titles like Final Fantasy X, Elden Ring, and Hollow Knight are some of my most favorite games of all time, and perfect to revisit over and over for things like challenge runs. I'm talking about no sphere grid runs in Final Fantasy X, Rune Level 1 runs in Elden Ring, or just plain speed runs in Hollow Knight and Silksong. Having games like that on a handheld that you can bring anywhere is just really nice to have. Of course, while playing games like Final Fantasy X and Silksong aren't affected by this very much, if at all, Playing some of the more massive games on the Switch 2 means they will not look or run as well as they do on a gaming PC. It is a noticeable downgrade in both visuals and performance. But you are trading that graphical power for pure convenience. You could argue that a Steam Deck is better for this, however, Steam Decks are really expensive right now. And even if you already own those games on Steam, as is the case for most of us, I personally still prefer a dedicated lighter handheld like the Switch 2, because it takes up much less space in my bag. If you have a Steam Deck though and don't care about exclusives on the Switch 2, you're good. You really do not need this. There's one technical downside I noticed pretty late, and that is the input delay. If you compare the feeling of inputs on the PC version of Street Fighter 6 with the Switch 2 version, there is a significant difference in perceived timing at least. I don't have the equipment to do proper tests, so I will just pretend it is perceived. This is not just a tiny aside, it is a pretty big deal for fighting games. Regular combos are mostly unaffected because the timing between button presses does not change once you start, but defensive options like perfect parries rely on one single incredibly precise input. Because of the extra input delay on the Switch 2, again, perceived, landing those tight timing windows becomes much more difficult to get used to. It is not unplayable, but jumping back and forth between PC and console, it will definitely mess with your timing the first couple of matches every single time you switch. I do bring my laptop when I travel, and when I was still playing Tekken 8, I would usually install a program called Crossover before each trip to play Tekken 8. I actually had to turn the game's graphic settings down so far that it essentially looked like a blown up 3DS game, but it plays exactly like it does on my PC. So why not play Street Fighter 6 on the laptop too instead of the Switch 2? Mostly because of local storage space. I only have 1 terabyte of space on my laptop, and I would rather not fill up hundreds of gigabytes with games that I can just play on a dedicated handheld console. This is exactly why I would love for Tekken 8 to get a Switch 2 port, just so I could save all that massive storage space on my laptop. Having said that, an optimized macOS version of both games would be highly welcome as well, and I'd absolutely take that over anything else, especially if a Thunderbolt 5 SSD can be used as storage. At that point, and depending on how good Ocarina of Time and Metroid 6 turn out to be, I might just have to make another video about why I'm feeling buyer's remorse for having bought a Switch 2 again. All in all, I really have come around to liking this thing. What about you? Did you buy one? Are you planning on getting one? If yes, what are you interested in playing on it? And if you travel, are you Team Switch 2 or do you strictly demand a Steam Deck? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or just leave a handful of potato emojis. I always love seeing those, but you know this by now. See you next time.